The SurePassID SSO Identity Manager allows you to configure and manage all the identity management and access controls for your SAML2 based SSO applications. This configuration information allows you to control access to your SSO apps regardless of the platform that they are running on. SurePassID SSO runs on every internet-connected token that has a web browser. The SurePassID SSO mobile app can be used to run your SSO apps from a native mobile application developed for Android, Apple, and BlackBerry phones. The SurePassID SSO mobile app integrates with BYOD and MDM providers to make deploying, provisioning, and removals of apps a breeze. SurePassID SSO is a role and policy-based system. You can configure different users to have specific roles within the organization and associate those roles with access policies on a product-by-product basis, locking down your apps. SurePassID ships with over 50 applications preloaded. However, there might be a need to add a new SAML2 app that comes on the market, or your company might develop their own SAML2 app that needs to be connected. SurePassID can support these applications by allowing you to add new SAML2 apps that are only visible to your company. To get to the SSO section, from the home page, you select the SSO tab. Here you will see all of the settings and configurations along with your applications list for all of the apps you've already added. The following functions are available in the actions bar. We have policies, roles, and if you are a super admin, you will see a third option that says Manage SSO Apps. Here you will see all of the different SSO and authentication settings, along with your applications list of all of the SSO apps that have already been either preloaded or added to your applications list for your company. If you would like to globally turn SSO support on or off, you have the option here. If you would like to allow a user to log in with a credential, without a credential, and only use their username and password, that option is given here. Although this is not supported by all SAML2 apps, you can allow and give users the access to change their password. You can ignore this field if Active Directory support is already enabled. If you would like to customize the SSO login form with your company's logo, please enter the entire URL here. If you would like to provide an end user with the SurePass Identity Provider URL so that they can log in and manage their SSO applications, you would provide them with this URL. If you are needing the Identity Provider SAML2 metadata URL to plug into your configuration, that can be found here. At any time, you can view the SSO public certificate here and download it here. SurePass Identity Server is currently the default for any of the authentication settings. You can also select popular legacy two-factor authentication systems such as VeriSign, Entrust, RSA, Vasco, and Radius. After making any selections or adding any new preloaded SSO applications to your list, fill in the information and select the Update button. To make changes to an existing configuration, select the pencil button. SurePassID will try to plug in the correct values for the fields, but you can also modify them based on the service provider application. If the application is a SAML2 app, this is the form that you will see. Here you will see the app name, and in the second section, you will see the SAML2 issuer. This is the value that needs to match the identity provider issuer identification specified at the service provider SAML2 configuration settings. For right now, SurePassID directory is the only option for data store. In the next section, you will see that this is a login name that will be sent to the service provider for access after SurePassID authenticates the system. This needs to match what the service provider expects. The choices are email, username, and SSO username. If you would like to add a time for an assertion validation, the option is listed here. Please note that some service providers ignore this value and others will force the users to re-log in when assertion is no longer valid. Down below, you will see options to enter information regarding the SAML2 issuer. This is the identification of the service provider that will make the request for access from SurePassID. The required field is the service provider URL that will accept the SAML2 assertion from SurePass Identity Provider. That can be listed here. The audience URI is the service provider audience that this request is designated for. SAML2 apps are usually designed to be initiated by the identity provider, service provider, or both. This field specifies which one of the service provider is supported. For preloaded apps, this option might already be selected. The login URL is the URL login used to the service provider. It is not often needed. The logout URL is the URL used to log out the user from the service provider. If there are any additional SAML2 attributes or name value pairs that will be sent to the service provider, they can be added here. Select the Edit button, enter any attribute names and any attribute values, and select the Update button. As mentioned, if you are needing to add a new SAML2 app or an app that you've created, you will select the New SAML2 section. From here, you will have the opportunity to enter the app name, ensure that the SAML2 issuer information is configured correctly, fill out the appropriate fields, and enter the required information for the assertion consumer service URL. Here you are also able to select and add any SAML2 attributes that should be added. Once you've filled out this information, select the Update button to add a new configuration. To configure a new web form, from the home screen of the SSO Settings tab, select New Webform App. Here you will have a few different fields that you will need to enter in to get this configured. The first option would be to select which login web form type you would like to support. You have the option to support the post method or the get method. Underneath, you will be able to list the application name. The form name and ID is only valid for web forms that support the post method. This is the name of the form that is created and posted to. The login web form URL is the URL that will support the login process. Any additional parameters can be added here, including attribute names and attribute values. When you're ready to add the new Webform SSO app, select the Add button. If you would like to show an HTML preview, you can select that here. And once you're done, you can close this section. As previously mentioned, one of the functions allowed is setting policies within the SSO section. To do that, select the Policies tab from the top main functions bar. And here you will see all of the policies configured for your SSO settings. SurePassID allows you to configure different SSO using policies. These policies can limit access to company resources such as applications, locations, and time. The SSO policy list form displays all of the policies defined in the system and allows you to copy, delete, update, and add profiles here. The actions you can take on each policy are new, edit, delete, or copy. Select the appropriate policy you'd like to edit and select the pencil icon. From here, you have the option to update or add any configuration settings. The policy name will be the name that you give the policy. The policy violation action would be log, enforce, or ignore. If you log, the user is permitted access, but the violation is logged in the audit trail. If you select enforce, the user is not permitted access and the violation is logged in the audit trail. If you select ignore, the user is permitted access and the policy is ignored. If you would like to put a time restriction policy here, you can select which day of the week, select the access types, and the start time and the end time. When it comes to access IP restriction, you have two separate options. You can limit access to only these IP addresses by selecting this and individually inputting and listing the IP addresses here. If you would like to allow all IP addresses, leave these options unchecked. When it comes to access IP policy, these are the only two options you have. If you would like to select apps and roles and add restrictions to these options, that would be here. You could select the designated apps this policy applies to, and also select the roles that this policy will apply to as well. From here, you can then select update, and this policy will take effect. Another function, as previously mentioned, is configuring the SSO roles within SurePassID. To do that, select roles from the main functions bar. Here, you will be allowed to configure roles for a different set of users. These roles can then be applied to policies that you have defined in the system. The SSO role list displays all the roles defined to the system and allows you to copy, delete, update, and add profiles as shown. The actions you can take on each role are new, edit, delete, and copy. To do so, you would just select the pencil icon to edit, delete would be here, and copy would be here to copy the role. Once you select a role to edit, you have the option to edit the role name, the role description, and then you also see the users in this specific role and have the option to update those here.